Here we have these stories that are supposed to just be myths and allegories. They're not real, and yet real cities are mentioned. Real rulers are mentioned, real events are mentioned. And so when I was cross-referencing all of them, I started to put them all together and recreate the timeline of this ancient world and what happened to them, what they experienced, what they said about where we came from, like who we are. And as that unfolded, it led me to Lake Vaughn and then opened up this entire rabbit hole because I had already been studying megaliths and this type of work around the world, not monoliths like Stonehenge, highly precise megaliths, like for instance, the Valley Temple in Egypt or Ollantaytambo or Sacsayhuaman in Peru or Pumapunku in Bolivia, or where you have very large or often very well cut stones, very, very beautifully done, usually a very hard type of stone, not something soft. And it often has a type of architecture that either only follows two forms, and there's only two. There's either the very, very 90-degree angle kind of sharp look, and then there's the really polygonal natural look like we see in, for instance, Sacsayhuaman, where it's like big pillow. I'm sure you've seen that.
Oh my God, it's
the
crazy.
Huge pillow stones.
And how they all magically fit together, mold together.
Right.
It's like you took hot rocks and just squished them together.
Exactly. And that's what we're investigating, is also how those things could have even been done. But the point is that when I was studying all of those around the world and looking at the symbols, they sometimes had symbols and other times it was just a signature of stonework, I found what I believed was the most important key of all, which is why I'm calling the documentary The Missing Key and my book The Missing Key, is that I believe that Lake Vaughn is the origin of all of it.
What's Lake Vaughn?
Lake Vaughn is a lake in eastern Turkey. And again, this is the new kid in the block when it comes to ancient history and archaeology, right? You mentioned Turkey and everyone's like, oh, Göbekli Tepe and Karahan over and over and over again. But these areas are, to me, far more sophisticated, far more advanced, and just unknown, which is very strange. And they're a lot newer. I think part of the problem with these sites compared to Göbekli Tepe was found, before around 1940s. It's been around a long time.
Right.
Whereas, for instance, those underwater ruins that we're about to talk about under Lake Vaughn, they weren't found until 2017.
Wow.
So that's a big reason why a lot of these things are not known, is because we're breaking new ground.
So this Lake Vaughn is in Turkey.
It's in far eastern Turkey, yeah.
And there was underwater ruins found in 8 years ago.
That's it. And so that person in the background, his name is Tosin Jalen. He's a famous diver and videographer. He goes all over the world. He's in like 200 documentaries. He's pretty well known. He was diving in Lake Vaughn off of a town called the Gigives in the northern part of Lake Vaughn. He wasn't looking for ruins. He was filming underwater, these microbiolites, they're called. They're like a type of carbon formation that forms in the lake.
Okay.
Lake Vaughn's a very special lake. It's what's called it's the largest soda lake in the world.
Soda.
Meaning that it's a very alkaline, salty lake and it has no outlet. So soda has to do with a lake that has no river or water exiting. So it all gets trapped in the lake.
Interesting.
Which formed these really large, what they're called microbiolite formations. And so he was down there filming them because he's like a nature photographer, videographer.
Yeah.
And he accidentally stumbled upon what became now considered the deepest confirmed underwater ruins in the world. Again, you're going to throw out on Yonaguni or something, that's not confirmed. And in fact...
What's that?
Well, Robert Schoch, way back when Graham was doing his documentary, brought him out to Japan to do the diving off of Japan to look at what he thought was underwater ruins. And
is this what they were showing with the Flint Dibble debate where he was showing the pictures?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
And then Robert Schoch determined it was a natural formation, and then it created a bunch of chaos. But the point is
it was hard to just figure out. I mean, it was like a coin flip whether it was natural or whether it was man-made.
But the point is that there are people that say there's certain ruins here or whatever, but these are the deepest underwater confirmed.
That's clearly bricks.
These are stones that are likely andesite. Right. It's a very hard type of stone. Now that ruin you're seeing right there, they're actually scattered over quite a large area. They're as shallow as 30 feet and they're as deep as 75 feet. 75 feet underwater. Like, it's an enormous amount of water. That was one of the big things that led me to this region, was exploring those ruins, and we for the documentary we actually dove down. I drove down and got a chance to see them and swim down and see them for myself.
Wow.
Because they have
terrible visibility down there, huh?
Yeah, thank you for pulling that up.
Because it's so salty, right?
Yeah, that's an Armenian one though. If you go back, careful. There's Armenian and non-Armenian. Yeah, go to that left image right in the middle left. That one. Click that for me. Okay, actually not that one. I'm sorry. Scroll down a little bit. I should have sent that one. What I want to show you is the front capstone of this has symbols on it. They were really mysterious that match like ancient Egypt, and so that was what's so exciting about it. And see if he has it. I mean, I should have sent that one to him, but good. Can you go to the photos I sent you? The picture of me diving has it. So it's if you go up.
Is it this one?
Yeah, that one. Okay, we got it. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
So on what you see in front of you are two symbols. The third one is worn off, unfortunately. Now, the middle symbol is a 6-petaled flower of life-like symbol. Mm-hmm. And the one on the next to it is a counterclockwise spiral. Okay? Now, number one, this is deep underwater. And then it brings up all the questions of when was it built? What could have caused it to flood and be underwater? Right? Which is what a lot of the dating that we're going to talk about comes from, that I came up with. And then the bigger questions are, why is that symbol also at Ionis, which we'll talk about, at Kefkalesi, and then across the world in Egypt at the Osirion? And then other places as well, is like there's a giant puzzle here that we're putting together. A global lost civilization that seemed to be sharing knowledge all around the world. All had connections to it, and they were systematically destroyed and wiped out. And we have ample evidence showing that occurred during what was called the Older and Younger Dryas, which was during the end of the Pleistocene, the beginning of the Holocene, when the last ice age ended. And what we're being falsely told by scientists is that, number one, and these are unfortunate, but science has some real things it needs to get past. The first thing is not everything is linear. It's not. Not everything is a slow linear progression. Not everything's gradual. Right. Not everything happens slowly. It just doesn't. We look at ice core samples from Antarctica and Greenland, it's right there. And that's why when people are talking about how warm it is right now and all these things, I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Go look at a Greenland ice core and see how much warmer it was when it spiked during the older Dryas.
Wasn't it much warmer than it is now during like the Renaissance period?
Yeah, it's that too. And so what the point is that when I go back and looked and started studying climatology and ice cores and others, you see that the Earth has gone through very violent and very apocalyptic, almost cyclical events where it's on like a repetition. And that's why the Earth goes into ice ages and then retreats, and then it happens over and over again because there's a cyclical nature to the Earth going through those. And the problem is that when it goes from an ice age to a non-glaciated period, usually it comes with crazy disasters. And we've never experienced anything like that in the last 11,500 years. I'm sure you haven't heard of Ionis yet, right? So Ionis was not found until almost 2000. And it was deliberately buried on top of a mountain, and it's an incredible ancient temple. It's built all with andesite and basalt and golden calcite alabaster. But I want you to click that picture, right in the right on the left there, the middle, that one right there. So I want to show you this and talk about it a little bit because I think it's fascinating. Is that these sites around Lake Vaughan I feel like will be game changers in the future. Big game changers. Number one, if you look at a lot of the symbols they have around it, you've matched them around the world into other important symbols. But most importantly, I want to focus behind the altar on the sun cross. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. So that sun cross is a very specific type of cross. It forms a circle. That's why it's a sun cross. And it has, equal arms that come out. Now, when I was looking into the age of this civilization and the evidence we were finding for how much older it was than the Urartians. So traditional archaeologists tells us that this was built by the Urartian culture 2,800 years ago, but they're the ones who built all the mud brick on top and all the castles. And that's what that dirt that's right above that is. It's actually eroded mud brick. Now, that's one of the reasons why a lot of this has been ignored. But Ionis, that cross, if you look at that and you follow it, it brings up some really profound questions. The first one is, number one, how did they create and carve any of those things? Those stones are what's called andesite. Those are a 7 to a 7.5 on the Mohs hardness scale out of 10. And for not only that, but if you look, they cut symbols through more than one block, which I don't even know how you would even do that. If you would have two blocks fitted together,
Like they did it after the blocks were already put up there.
How would you fit them perfectly together like that?
Yeah, they had to have done it after the blocks were put in place, right?
There's no mistakes. They're all laser cut, okay? And it's one of the hardest stones in the world. But what gets even more wild is that symbol we then find in the highest levels of secret societies and echelons of religion later on. And so if you want to pull up really quick, can you start with that Knights Templar cross? I want to show that really quick. Right there, yeah. So the Knights Templar became one of the most famous groups in history, right? They were protecting and preserving this cross, and they ended up being hunted down and eradicated by the church, right? It's a famous story. They were part of an old secret society that was protecting something.
Yeah, they controlled all the money and all that.
That cross is called either the Red Cross or the Knights Templar cross today, but it's based on the solar cross. Now, if that cross predates them by a great amount of time, and it's from Ionis, that's the origins of that entire cross, the mystery just gets deeper and deeper, because we could be looking at ancient traditions and knowledge and knowing that were literally lost and still remained in certain secret societies through oral traditions and others, but the actual origin point of where it came from might have been lost. Like they had no idea that that was from Ionis, because Ionis had been buried for almost 3,000 years. Buried. It was not found until somewhat recently. And so Alexander the Great visited the Von region. Xerxes visited the Von region. If you go to Von Castle, I was just there for a tour, you can see the Xerxes inscription up there. They all visited like they knew that it was a very special place, right? Some of the highest high-profile explorers and people like that in history and conquerors. And they went there, but Ionis was buried and never found until recently. And so you start seeing this usage of this type of cross in the highest echelons. And it really brings up very profound questions about whether or not it was some kind of an ancient knowing and tradition that went all the way back, but was then lost and still remains. So can you go to the next picture of the Pope really quick in the Vatican? I want to show. Yeah, so take a look at this. Instead of having the Christian cross, the Pope is wearing that same cross from the Knights Templar. All the way back to, I believe, is this first one that came from Ionis. And so it gets into some really profound areas of exploring whether or not we could be looking at an entire area of lost history that could redefine religion, could redefine philosophy back to what it used to be, ancient teachings, understandings of sacred geometry, all kinds of things that come back in opening the doors of what this civilization may have left behind for us to find our way back. Let me give you another example. Can you go to that image that's on the left there, right on the left, that T-pillar right there? No, up on the left there, all the way left.
This thing?
Yep. That's from Shavuos Tepe. That's right next to Ionis. Now, when we were there doing an analysis and investigation, do you see that? That's the center cut in the middle there. That we found that was exactly 12 inches, exactly a foot. And when we measured other ratios with it, we found that it may be part of the building blocks of potentially even mathematics. So I found also areas that looked like a compass was used to design some of the symbols, and they have this symbol. Now, if you look at what that symbol looks like, if you go to ancient Greece, the capital letter for pi is that design. And so are we looking at the origins of the basis of geometry and mathematics encoded into these structures and areas around Lake Von? I'm telling you, it just keeps going deeper and deeper, because every time we look into these things they built and left behind, it seems like it's the beginnings of everything that became the most important parts of of civilization, like we said, like astronomy, mathematics, even agriculture and other things may have emerged from these places and may have led to everything else like that we understand today.
Wow. That's pretty fucking crazy.
So
dude.
that piece right there, just so you can get an idea how big it is. Can you zoom out to the other one really quick of the other images? And then go up. Yeah, go up to the top, second one. That's how big they are. That's around 7 tons.
Wow.
And now notice it's sitting in situ, still barely sticking out of the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
These sites are the only places in the world where you can find things like this that are not in museums and are still sitting there. You can't find that anywhere in the world.
Right.
They're just sitting there overgrown, and we went there and we just went there with a tour, and people actually found an artifact. Do you have a picture of that? I think I showed you that. Yeah, can you go to that artifact really quick? I want to show in the middle, right in the center, dead center. Click this. That guy right there, his name is Xavier. He came on my tour. It was our first tour we've ever done in the Vaughan region. And I brought him to a place called Kefkalesi. And I showed him the type of, everybody, like a whole group, we had 30 people. And I showed everybody the type of stone we were looking for. I said, look, they carved out of fine grained basalt only. Mm-hmm. I said, if anybody sees one, there's still a lot that hasn't been found here. And they were doing active excavations at the top of the hill. Like
Really?
I know the archaeologists and I work with them. Mm-hmm. And so we're walking on the slopes. He turns over a stone. He turns over a piece, and there's a full, from a basalt relief, that's the bottom of a lion. Okay, now I'm going to show you where it's from.
Huh. Oh, wow.
Remember the legs there?
Yep.
Now, can you go to that first image on the top left for me? This came from the same site. Now zoom in on the bottom with the lion. It's the bottom of the lion.
Whoa.
So he found one of the pieces of one of these.
Where is this phone from?
This is from Kefkalesi, which is right next to Ionis around Lake Vaughan. We found a piece of one of these, and it went into a museum. We handed it back to them, and they literally are putting it in the museum. But that's what the point I'm trying to make is that this is like the Wild West of archaeology. You can really find things. See?
Oh, that's crazy.
So it's actually the left lion, not the right. Yeah. So if you zoom in and look,
Yep.
it's the bottom of the lion.
100%.
And so the reason for that is that those bas-reliefs, those huge ones, there's at least 10 of them. And a lot of them broke off and fractured some of the sides where the symbols were, and they're still there, and you can find them.
It's crazy, the negative relief, like how they were able to do that kind of a detail.
Okay, and based on that, now go scroll up for him when he's based on the relief. Yeah, on the left. I want him to see this. Go all the way up. Now go to the top. Look at those levels. Okay, so you're talking about a solid piece of basalt that's around 50 tons. Okay, now they didn't make a single mistake. They somehow carved, that is 3 different interval levels. 3. They carved 3 interval levels into that somehow. Without making a mistake in one of the hardest stones on earth.
That's insane.
We have no understanding for how they did these things.
Right.
No understanding. In fact, today, masons have looked at stuff like this in hard stone. We're not talking about soft stone. We're
Right.
talking about granites, basalts, and andesites.
Yeah.
They are saying unless they had like lasers and machines, they wouldn't be able to do this.
Right. Same thing with these vases, man.
Like, I know. So
Yeah.
we have no idea how they did these things. No idea.
Right.
I believe that those ruins, what I'm showing you around Lake Vaughan, may be some of the oldest ruins in the world. Again, not primitive, starting from something that's very advanced and then teaching all around the world and then creating things like that. And then they all were like wiped out. But it gets really deep, the implications of Vaughan. And I want to tell you why I'm saying that, because I'm about to show you the same symbols all over the world. Okay. So that would mean that the underwater ruins, we could potentially have dating. Now, can you back out really quick? Go to the, okay, let's start with, go to the top left image of that big relief that we showed, way up. Go all the way up. Keep going. That. Okay, click that for a minute. This was found at Kefkalesi, the same place that artifact came. I showed you the lion.
Yep.
Now, zoom in to the step pyramid design for me at the top. Okay, pay attention to that really carefully. Take a snapshot in your mind of that.
Okay.
Ready? 3 levels, specifically 3. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. In fact, what's you know the Nikola Tesla quote where he says, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, it's through the numbers of 3, 6, and 9? You ever heard that before?
No.
Well, everything is fractals of 3, 6, and 9 here. But what I want you to see is that take that step pyramid design and then take the inverted one and then combine them. Can you look up for me the chakana design really quick? Chakana. It's the most important symbol in South America.
Chakana
design. Okay, so chakana, yeah, like go to the left one or whatever. Go to the very left one, that's fine, or whatever.
Black one.
Yeah, so if you take the middle piece, which is like the dividing of realms, and you just take the step pyramids, you can see it's just the top step pyramid, the lower step pyramid, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's the most important symbol in South America. Okay, now go back to what we just looked at. Okay, now go to the image on the right there with the spring that's flowing over the water, 3 down on the right. This is in Peru at a place called Ollantaytambo. Look, it's the 3-level step pyramid.
Wow.
It's in Peru across the entire world with 3 levels with the water flowing over the very top of it. Same thing we see at a nearby site called Napa and Glacia as well. Okay? And it keeps going. I'm not done yet. Now go back out really quick for me and then scroll. Is that the bottom for me? Okay, then. Okay, go down. You can do the one, the middle down there. Yep. This is in Saudi Arabia. This is called Madain Saleh in Saudi Arabia. Even though it may have more levels, it's still the same step pyramid concept.
Whoa.
Okay. Now I'm going to add one more for you.
What is this rock?
It's a giant stone temple in the middle of the desert. There's more than one that they literally created entire mountains into temples. Okay,
so they carved this out of the mountain.
Yes, out of a single mountain. Okay, now go back.
That's all one piece.
One stone. Okay, go back for me now to the images. Now go up and right in the center, that one. This I came across and couldn't believe it. That's Cambodia. Okay, across the entire world, the other direction. And I identified these. They're only very specific sites. They're not all of Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom. They're these very isolated temples within that are completely different than the rest. And they're actually considered to be built by a different culture that's not the Khmer Empire. So when I started finding this, I started seeing it around the world like, oh my God. And that's not even done yet. There's more. It was like a blueprint of knowledge that then was all around the planet. Okay? Now go back for me. I want to show you another example. It's wild. Okay, now go to that T pillar on the left, one down from the top. That. Remember we were looking at that? Mm-hmm. Take that concept and then take the inverted pyramid with the steps and then watch what happens. Now go back out for me. Now go, let's see, is it down or up? Let me see. Okay, go, yeah, bottom left. This is from Pumapunku in Bolivia. It's the same T, except they took the inverted pyramid and they combined both symbols. So they see the inverted one, they put the inverted pyramid into the top of the doorway, and then they took the T and they merged them into one symbol. It's really wild. They're all over the place. The same symbols.
Right.
And then go back out for me and then go, see how there's 3 doors on the other one? Go down the bottom and the bottom right, click that. That's the back of the sun gate in Tiwanaku. 3 doors. Center door is the most important. Yeah. With the same designs on each doorway.
Wow.
It's like it's had its origins in Vaughan and then passed all around the world.
That's crazy.
Like they're trying to tell us something. They're trying to teach us. And now if you want to know what they mean, let me explain it for a minute. The non-inverted pyramid means above or the heavens. I should say the inverted pyramid means the heavens. The non-inverted pyramid means earth. It's our realm. So it's like they're talking about 2 realms of reality. So one would be like this realm of earth, and the other one is above, like the heavens. So it's really interesting that on those reliefs, like especially the Gate of the Sun, because it's an astronomical temple that's to the stars, it's only shown with the inverted pyramid. Only. And every single time they show it, it's the inverted and not the non-inverted. It's like they're trying to show us aspects of knowledge of how it all functions and how it all.
Do you think there was any utility to these structures?
These may have been gateways that take you somewhere.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just like, my mind automatically goes to like
stargates to somewhere else in the universe. Like, we don't understand, but I'm telling you, these fundamental esoteric principles that are like the most important thing to understand, they're all in these places. Like, all esoteric mysticism traditions all came out of this knowledge. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, everything came from this. It looks like they were lowering all knowledge. And I want to give one more example. Go back to the images. Go to the very top left again. All the way back up. Okay. Click that one again on the left, because there's so much there I have to always bring up. Okay. Look at what's going on here. There you have the god Haldi on the right, which is equivalent of Enki. He's got the pine cone. You see that in murals all around the world. I'm sure you've seen that. But instead of a handbag or a bucket, he has what may be the first cup or chalice in history, ever. Now, the chalice or the cup, if you look it up, what it means specifically the passing of a spiritual or religious doctrine. So we know what he's passing. We know that he's passing the knowledge of the most high divine knowledge. Why? Look at his helmet. His like almost like a magi type of hat. If you scroll up, notice what door it's facing into. The center door.
Right.
Remember the gate of a sun, the center door is the largest. Have you seen the Last Supper? The famous Last Supper from Da Vinci. The 3 doors are there in the back.
Can you pull up the Last Supper from Da Vinci?
I'm telling you, it's like they knew. Even Da Vinci knew that there was like a deep understanding. Yeah, just pull up any of those. And then, look at the doors in the back. See how Jesus is in the center door?
Yeah.
None of it's by accident. It's been right in front of us the whole time. There's a deep understanding of the 3 doors represent the 3 aspects of like the universe. And the concept of 3 is a fractal that goes all the way back to us too, Danny. Now, go back to your religious understanding. What was the Trinity? Do you remember?
The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Or the mind, the body, and the spirit, like soul.
Okay.
So 3 components make up us of what we are. 3 fundamental components. We are the body, we are the mind, and we are the spirit. So they're showing that if you balance all 3 of those things, you unlock something. You unlock a doorway. Well, that's what we're seeing, is that the earth has been a lot more violent than we've often been told. And that, I'll give you another example. The last ice age, when it ended, we're taught today that the explanation for so many megafauna dying, like large animals like woolly mammoths and such, the explanation we're given for why they died. And by the way, like my good friend Randall Carlson, we have good conversations around this. 44 million megafauna died during that event. 44 million in the Northern Hemisphere.
In North America, right?
Northern Hemisphere, because that's where it was the hardest hit. Now, we're told that indigenous groups overhunted these megafauna, and that's what led to their extinction. Completely backwards, completely wrong. In fact, the opposite is true. Indigenous people were very respectful of populations. They would never overhunt. But the more important part to take away is
Steve, this was a recent article published in one of the websites, like it was either New York Post or Wall Street Journal, something like that.
What we found, though, across the Northern Hemisphere, Northern Alaska, Northern Canada, and other places, like especially Siberia, are massive boneyards, massive events where all these mammoths all instantly died.
Right.
And so what we're finding, especially in the areas called the New Siberian Islands, in the early 1900s, they went up and explored and were mapping them out. And they found entire mammoths that had been flash frozen with not only undigested food in their stomachs, but actually in their throats.
Yeah, wasn't that how they came up with the term Younger Dryas? Because it had the Dryas flower.
The flowers from that time period. What gets wild, though, is that, so the frozen company, Birdseye, really funny, like, right, of all things, how random is that? Birdseye, way back in the day, was doing some studies because they freeze things. And so they were doing a study on how cold it would have had to have been to freeze a mammoth, right? It was so funny, like a frozen food company. They determined it had to have been at least negative 150 degrees.
Whoa.
Instantly to freeze a mammoth like that. I mean, they're the hardiest animal on the earth. Now, here's where it gets really wild.
To flash freeze
a mammoth. Here's where it gets really wild is that during the older Dryas in ice cores from Greenland, you can see this huge spike at 14,500 years ago, like warmer than now, okay? Crazy huge spike before all this chaos happened right after. A spike in temperatures that's like abnormal, and it only lasted for maybe a year or two, or like even that. So when Edward Toll, the explorer, went up to New Siberians and found the frozen mammoths, it wasn't the only thing he found. He found a 30-foot tall alder tree that was hundreds of miles north of where any trees can grow, okay? Like out of place. Not only that, it was flash frozen like the mammoths with green leaves. Green leaves. It wasn't like a seasonal climate, like seasons came in and shifted. It was in the middle of summer.
So how
and the tree froze with green leaves and the mammoths froze. In the middle of summer, it means that this event caused the temperatures up in the north to drop as low as negative 150 degrees, like instantly.
How does that, I mean, like I understand if comets hit, it's going to black out the sun and the atmosphere and it's going to cause it to get very cold quickly. But how do you explain like instantaneously going to negative 100 degrees?
Have you ever seen, let's see, I was going to bring up a movie here, but okay. If you get severe interactions from the sun, so there's a lot of people in my field that are cosmic impact theorists. I'm not one of them. I'm in the camp of Dr. Robert Schoch that instead of an impact, it's more of like a giant CME event.
Solar mass ejection.
Massive charged particle event that bombards the Earth and causes the magnetosphere of the whole planet to become weakened, and then the poles all shift. Okay? When the poles all shift, you get a weakening of that electromagnetic grid that protects the Earth, and holes open up. Now, those holes can have a couple interesting effects. One of them is that if those charged particles get through one of those holes, they can like fry the Earth. And so when we were at Kefkalesi in the Vaughan region, that was actually probably the primary reason Robert decided to join the exploration investigation of what we were doing, is that I was like, Robert, I'm pretty sure from my understanding of geology that these blocks, beautiful basalt cut blocks, have vitrification on them. And I showed him pictures of melted stone. And so I showed him pictures. He came out and we hiked up to this mountain temple. It's so beautiful, called Kefkalesi. And there's a massive megalith. It's about 50 tons. It's huge. It's like 4 feet by 4 feet. It's enormous. And the sides have all broken off, and the top still has a beautiful smooth area where they cut it, however they did that. On the top of this block, the whole front of it and these bubbles is we can see where the basalt, which is one of the hardest stones on Earth, it's a volcanic stone, is melted, turned into glass. So it has glass on the top of it, and he came and identified it as it is 100% vitrification. Now, in order to get basalt to melt, you'd have to have temperatures to, what do you think?
To get basalt to melt?
To get stone to melt, like quartz or basalt or anything that's got a high...
1,000 degrees?
Nearly 2,000 degrees.
Wow. So
on the surface. So like we're complaining about, Death Valley getting like 140. How about 2,000? So you would vaporize. So if Danny Jones was hanging out at one of those sites.
Well, that'd be like a lightning strike, right?
You would just poof, you just kind of disappear. Yeah. And that's what's so fascinating is then, okay, so it's vitrification, it's on a stone that's already been cut. So we know the stone predated that event because it has cuts on it and it's beautiful. But it means that whenever that had vitrification, it had to have been an extreme event. So that's the point, is you don't just get vitrification from like everyday thunderstorms or regular events.
Right.
Vitrification has to come from an extreme event, like something that is affecting like the whole poles of the Earth and opening up holes. And the reason why these ancient sites are so targeted, because you don't just see vitrification like all over the place. It's because they were only using stones that were highly magnetic in most cases. Like they were like lightning rods. So when you have these events come through, they end up focusing on these places because they're highly magnetic. And so they basically attract electromagnetism and all these things. And and that's what's really fascinating, Danny, is that we saw at nearby sites, not just Kefkalesi, but Shavuos Tepe next to it, that the actual original stone formations, the temples that were there, literally exploded. Like exploded. We found fragments that were scattered over like an arc.
Serapeum boxes exploded too. Some of the Serapeum boxes in Egypt.
Yes, that's like a great example. In the Serapeum in Egypt, there's these giant granite boxes, and the same thing happened there. Like it was an overwhelm, like an overload of energy. And that these areas were like specifically ended up getting that overload because the upper Susi temple at Shavuos Tepe, there's nothing left of it. But what you find are an arc. And a very specific, you can like measure it even, like an arc where everything blew and flew towards. And there are all these blocks, and there are all the beautiful cuts that were once in the temple, but they're all broken. All of them like all broken into pieces, like hundreds of them, like they exploded, like the whole thing exploded.
Right.
You just brought up the unfinished obelisk in Egypt, okay? That was by far the largest obelisk that they had ever created, okay? More than double the size of the biggest one.
Right.
Meanwhile, in Easter Island, the largest moai ever that was being created, like 2 to 3 times bigger than any of the moai that are there, was being taken out of the host rock, just like in Egypt.
But that was volcanic rock.
Well, they're both hard, but both of them were being taken out of the host rock, and then everything stopped. Meanwhile, you go across the world to China. You go to a place called Yangshan Quarry in China, and they were in the middle of taking out the largest blocks in human history. Some of them weighed like well over 1,000 tons. Meanwhile, you add one more, Baalbek, Lebanon.
Oh yeah.
And the quarries there, they were taking out the largest that they'd ever done, and they never made out of the quarry. What you have in common with all of these locations from everywhere around the world is that the civilization was in the midst of creating the largest that they had ever created of these structures, which means that they're at the height of their civilization because they were taking on the biggest projects they'd ever done globally. Everyone was. And then all of a sudden the work stopped out of nowhere and they just vanished. That tells us a few things. It tells us, one, they probably were caught off guard somewhat, or they wouldn't be taking on massive projects right before they're about to be destroyed. And two, the scope of these events must have been so severe that most of them must have perished. And that whoever survived must have gone to places like these massive underground cities like Derinkuyu and Kaymakli. I'm not sure you're familiar with, but you're not. In southern Turkey are the largest underground cities in the world. Some of them go down like
I've heard
half
of
a mile to
Derinkuyu.
Yeah, it has a sister city called Kaymakli.
Okay.
The wild thing is that they built these cities to be so survivable without ever having to go to the surface that Kaymakli is 5.5 miles away from Derinkuyu, okay? 5.5 miles, that's a long way. And yet, at the bottom of Derinkuyu, all the way down the lowermost level, they found a tunnel, like a corridor that goes 5.5 miles all the way to Kaymakli. Like the people there that were trying to survive couldn't go to the surface. And they were like going to go visit another city with maybe relatives, and so they would have to travel underground. Wow. I'm not sure a lot of people don't know about that. And to this day, we have no idea who built those cities. There's things thrown around based on occupations of people at different times, but we still have no idea who built them. And the amount of levels of Derinkuyu is astounding. The amount of rock they would have had to remove. We've never even found any of the stuff they removed.
When did we discover Derinkuyu? Do you know?
Derinkuyu is in, I think, in the 1940s, and it was actually totally accidental. It's a funny story. There was a man that had his house. It was an old city, and he had an apartment, and it was like a mud brick apartment, or whatever. And he had chickens, and he couldn't figure out why his chickens kept disappearing. Okay. It's funny. That's the story. And so he's like, what is going on? Where are my chickens? And so one day he followed one of them, and he saw it go through like a hole in the wall. And so he took down the hole and it opened up, and it turned out it was an entrance to the largest underground city in the world.
Jesus, could you imagine?
It was right, like we're in the basement
You
of
have
his
an
house.
underground city connected to the bottom of your house.
So
wow. Oh, go to the top right one,
Yeah.
Steve, the Facebook one. So is this like a diagram of how deep it is?
Yes.
It's like an ant city. It's
Exactly.
like it's like underneath an ant pile, what you would see.
And that's just Kuyu. That's Kaimakli is just like that.
And
But
it can fit thousands of folks.
up to 20,000 per place. And it's not only just what it seems with just random shafts, it's actually an entire world. They had libraries, they had areas for animals, they had areas for sleeping, they had schools, they had air shafts to bring down air.
Right. I was gonna say, like, how the hell do they have oxygen down there?
They had a type of air shaft that went on an angle.
Wow, is that really it?
Yeah.
Holy crap! It's all lit up and everything.
Well, they put lights in. I mean, they weren't
No, I
lights
know.
when they
Obviously,
found it.
after they did that, but it's amazing that they actually went to this extent to like make it like inhabitable and like so you can show people.
So they carved these air shafts enormous distances to the top on an angle so that rainwater couldn't like flood them down there, and they would live for enormous amounts of time. And my theory that many other also support is that these were created solely because of the cyclical nature of these events and how these civilizations remembered their ancestors had been wiped out, and they built these entirely for their own survival.
So how would this survive a flood, though?
How would it flood? What do you mean?
How would you survive a flood if it's
Well,
underwater?
they have these giant circular stones that they just roll and seal them underground.
And it's watertight, even if there's like a massive catastrophic flooding.
Yeah, have you seen the big round stones?
No.
Oh, they're amazing. So if you look up Kuyu and round door stones,
But then
check
you're
it
also
out.
cutting off the oxygen. So
No,
like,
they have air shafts.
so
they
like
have
snorkels.
They have air shafts that are cut up into high points, like high points that come out. There you go right there. So do the one next to it. But that gives you an idea of they would roll those across and seal everybody in.
And that would be watertight.
It's as watertight as they could. But here's the wild thing is, Danny, is that what if, based on how long these events went on, like the older Dryas into the Younger Dryas had series of events that occurred for over 1,500 years.
Right.
The entire human story.
What is the older Dryas?
The older Dryas is the events that occurred right before the Younger Dryas, and they're not
Before
often,
the Younger Dryas.
Yeah, they're not often talked about. But the Younger Dryas is more like 12,000 years ago.
Yeah.
The older Dryas is like 14,500 years ago. Not that much further, but they have direct connections to each other. If you're going to understand the Younger Dryas, you can, unless you understand the older Dryas.
So my understanding is that the Younger Dryas lasted for about 1,000 years.
And then the older Dryas is another 1,000. So if you combine the two, you get events, not all the time, but you get events, usually always on the front and on the front side and the back side, and then usually something in the middle. And so imagine our Earth going through catastrophic periods where certain parts of the Earth is like you can't even live there. Not everywhere, or life would all died.
Right.
But certain parts of the Earth were just violent and difficult to even live in. Imagine them going down there. Imagine entire generations never seeing the sun, never even coming out. As far as we know, like the people that went down there and lived there, they may have never surfaced.
They would evolve into gray aliens with big eyes.
Something weird, like
and white
mole
skin
people,
and
right?
No muscles on
No,
the
like
body.
they can't see, they're blind.
They would
and
develop
just-
telepathy.
Right. No, I know. So, but there you go. That's like some good analysis. You can look at some of these events to see that. That's
It's
not my
backwards, so
It's not my favorite graph, but
yeah, 10,000,
there's some different
12,000.
versions of it we can look at. But yeah. So there we're talking about disasters that were enough to wipe out an entire global civilization, and then the survivors were the indigenous people, which is why they had no idea how to mimic and replicate what the ancestors did. Before people jump on that notion, I will jump to the myth of Adapa. And the myth of Adapa, can you pull up the myth of Adapa really quick? ADAPA? I would love you to see it for yourself.
And didn't the Anunnaki start like mating with the Ajiji?
They may have had some interaction with not the actual text. Can you get the actual translation? Myth of Adapa translation for me?
Try ChatGPT, bro.
Yeah, if you can look up, please give me the in ChatGPT, please give me the translation of the myth of Adapa. I need you to read this because when you read this,
Make sure you say please,
please,
so it doesn't come kill you when it becomes all mighty,
I have
when it turns
I
into
have
a god.
great relationship with mine. So when you read this, it's going to fundamentally change your perspective forever.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Because this gives us the answers.
Oh, really?
Yes. The myth of Adapa is the oldest ancient text ever written.
Okay.
It's
Adapa and the food of life.
Let me see. Wow, this is not a good version. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. This is a perfect example of a version that is not the original version.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I know the wording is different on this. Hold on, let me pull it up. 1 second. Myth of Adapa translation. I'm going to find you it because you're really going to love this.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see.
Tablet 1.
Yeah. Okay, this is it.
Okay.
You found it. Thank you. See what I'm talking about? How difficult it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me. I don't have my glasses on, so I have to
I can read it.
Can you read to read right to here and then pretend that's a period? Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, because the world needs to hear this.
Tablet number 1, Myth of Adapa. He possessed intelligence. Okay, Steve, what are you doing? All right. His command, like the command of Anu. He, Ea, granted him a wide ear to reveal the destiny of the land. He granted him wisdom, but he did not grant him eternal life. In those days, in those years, the wise man of Eridu, Ea, had created him as the chief among men, a wise man whose command none should oppose. The prudent, the most wise among the Anunnaki was he.
Okay, so you can stop right there. It's telling us about the figure that became known as Adam. His original name was Adapa. This tablet is the oldest single written record in human history, period. The myth of Adapa is considered the first Sumerian tablet that's ever been recorded in terms of for its age. It's one of the oldest tablets ever written to mankind. And it tells us profound things.
This is the oldest written
ever.
Document in history.
Yes. The myth of Adapa. It's the very beginning of everything. Now, what's really interesting here are a couple things. Number one, did you see that he says he has been created as chief among men.
Right.
That he's basically perfect. Remember like the description of Adam?
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is the line that really brings it home, though. The most wise among the Anunnaki.
The most wise among the Anunnaki was he.
So what it's saying is that the first man, the first perfect man, named Adapa, the first great sage from a city called Eridu, the first city ever created, that he's considered the most wise among the Anunnaki. So what does that mean for us? We are the Anunnaki. We are them. We just don't remember anything and we don't have any of the gifts anymore. They're trying to tell us that we started in a place where not only was he the most wise, but it's described even further. If you go to the Nag Hammadi scriptures, the secret book of John, it talks about how Enlil became jealous over how perfect man was, and then deliberately threw him into, that's what it says, threw him into a lower form of existence to trap him. So we were created by powerful fractals of source that are like omnipotent creator gods, right? And amongst them, we were created in such perfection that we were more wise and potentially more powerful than even they are. And because of jealousy by the gods, by them, specifically Enlil, he creates an entire world and hides us in a veil of war and deception and confusion to lock us in an eternity to never remember who we really are.
That's powerful, bro. So we are them.
Yes. And we have all the gifts they have. We just don't remember or have them unlocked yet. We are, now look at how we're perceived in the world today, how we're taught, right? Darwinianism, we're just a survival of the fittest species that's destroying everything around it. And we got here only because we got smart and the luck of the draw. It's the complete opposite of that. We're like a divine being of the universe. So what are we doing killing each other and doing all these horrible things? Do you know what happens when someone kills someone?
No. What happens?
They are the judges of all. You ever seen in Egypt where they show a feather, the symbol of the analogy of it, like the metaphor, a person's heart on a scale being weighed against a feather? You ever heard that before or seen that?
No.
That in ancient Egypt, it's a depiction that's commonly seen, and it's very known, where they are the judges of our entire existence. Every single thing you're doing is being judged. And that the way that you can unlock higher places is because those things are allowed to happen. Like you earned them, and you proved through these trials and tribulations that we don't even know are real, that everything we're being judged on. They call themselves, it's the most amazing term, they call themselves in at least 3 tablets, the ordainers of destinies, that they're literally in charge of everything. And that there's a really fine line between free will and destiny that we don't really understand. And we don't have as much free will as we really think. That's really what it comes down to, which is good, because let's face it, I don't want to be at the mercy of some madmen. They're going to send off a bomb and blow us all up.
Right.
So if we're not really in charge, it gives me a lot of peace of mind, knowing that there is something much higher that's actually governing a lot of the path of humanity.
Well, I mean, if there is a God who is all omnipotent and all knowing, that means God knows everything that's going to happen in the future.
Yes.
Which means there's no free will.
No. There isn't actually really free will, because time isn't what we think. There's no beginning and there's no end. Time is like a giant circle,
right,
as it's been described in esoteric traditions.
Right.
That there is no beginning and there is no end. That it's a giant circle, and that the whole point is that we start somewhere and we get completely lost. That's the fun in the game of it, the story. And then we find our way back. And it's through those unexpected and impossibilities of us making our way back that makes it such an interesting story. But a lot of like Vedic and Hindu traditions talk about technologies. They show them, they talk about them. And it's not only that area, but a lot of others. I'll give you an example. The story of Viracocha out of South America. He is told to have arrived on the shores with a group, and they initially were not receptive to him. And so it's described very well that he simply did a magic trick for them, like actually moved something or created something out of thin air. That's how it's described. And so when they saw that, they bowed down and said, like, we'll follow you. And that same story is echoed in other places too. I'm sure you know, in the Aztec realm, it was Quetzalcoatl was their dragon.
This is
god.
Prometheus. This is Enki. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. And in the Maya, it's Kukulkan. Right. And then we see that same equivalent in other parts of the world, like Thoth in Egypt and Hermes in Greece. Right. And what it all comes back to is they all are described as being magic. All of them. Every single one of them is described as being magic and being able to create and demonstrate things in front. And then the people followed and they taught them. They taught them everything. And then they left. This is the interesting thing. It's described as them creating places and then leaving. Right. And then leaving the people that are there to be the caretakers of them. But the people that were caretakers often, they succumb to violence and ways that it wasn't never meant to be. That's why the Maya and the Aztec were so violent, because it was never intended like that. And originally they went through periods of climate disruptions with crops and things, and they did blood sacrifice and things like that. But the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of those ancient cultures never started that way. A lot of other cultures came later that were just shadows of their former self. You know, and it's sad that they're the ones that are being given credit for such amazing things, and they're not the ones who, you know, really built any of them. Right. But that's where we are now, is separating what is just more primitive later cultures that get all this credit, and then showing where it should appropriately be, which is basically like a lost chapter. That no one was really able to do what they did after ever.
What do you think? Do you think the archetype of Quetzalcoatl and Prometheus and Enki are something real?
Yes.
Like something physical?
So that,
and if so,
that opens up like a huge thing.
What do you think they were?
Okay, so that is a really, really important and really difficult question to answer, especially for people that haven't studied it and actually read tablets themselves, because it sounds like too fantastic when you describe it. Now, most people in my fields will credit everything with these lost civilizations to aliens. Most of them do. I do not. I don't think what we're thinking about is an alien in the conventional sense.
Right.
Okay.
I agree with you.
So if you take all of the traditions, if you take all of the ancient teachings, if you take Hermeticism, the Vedic cultures, you take the Mayan stuff, the Egyptian stuff, the Mesopotamian stuff, especially the Mesopotamian stuff, take all of them, take every reference to these gods, these Anunna, every single one around the world, they all like say the same thing. All of them do, especially the tablets. I counted one time how many times the Anunna are mentioned in different tablets. I have 12 different tablets that they're talked about. So their original name is not the Anunnaki. Their original name is the Anunna. That's the Sumerian term that was the pantheon of gods that were associated with the Sumerian civilization. They describe them as being the origins of everything. That humanity, about the first cities, about civilization itself, they say in the tablets that it came from them, that it was all lowered to them and in very specific places that it was created, and how we are very much more like them than the other way around. That it was described in the tablets that they created us in the image of them, and that we are nothing like anything here at all. And that's why it's so confusing and we're so misguided, is that they just describe. Now, try to wrap your head around this. They're described as being something far more than like a group coming in a ship or something. They're not talked about that at all. They're talked about as being like omnipotent. They're talked about as being eternal, and that they are fractals of source. Okay? Hermeticism is my favorite one. The conversation with Poimander and Hermes is my favorite conversation regarding that, because he asks about the nature of everything, and like he's talking to Source, and Source is coming through as a dragon, which is really interesting because Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan are both dragons.
Right.
So is our traditions in ancient China. They're feathered serpents, which is like a dragon. And so over and over again, we see that archetype being shown back. Now, why a dragon? Well, a dragon's just a metamorphosized serpent to its highest form. Simple as that. So the snake is really interesting.
The snake is the same. The snake is described in at least one section as being a feathered serpent.
Yeah, because they're the same thing. That's why the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve are tempted by a snake.
Right.
It's just Enki. That's why Enki became demonized by later corrupted religions that then turned him into like a demon.
Right.
That's where that whole thing came from. They inverted so many things.
They inverted
so all kinds of things throughout history to make it the opposite. I'll give you an example. We know
and that's why they try to connect. That's why they connect Prometheus with the devil.
Okay, yeah, like let's pull this up really quick. It'll be super easy. Look up the caduceus or the rod of Asclepius, the medical symbol, right?
Yep.
Do we know what that is?
Yep. The snakes wrapping around each other.
If the snake is evil, why is on our most prominent area that has to do with health? Go to an image really quick.
Is the rod of Asclepius.
Okay, so there's two different symbols so people don't get confused. The caduceus is the one with the wings that is related back to Hermes. Okay, now that is two serpents intertwined around a spinal cord, our spinal cord. And the reason they show the wings is that they're showing that if we unlock our chakras of higher consciousness and energy, we basically unlock something. That's what they were leaving behind, is all of the knowledge. And the other version of this is called the rod of Asclepius. That's the one that became the medical symbol in the United States.
Right.
It's a slightly different version of that, but
it's
similar.
also two snakes having sex.
Well, they're intertwined around each other.
That's what snakes do. And have you seen a video of snakes fornicating?
Yeah.
It's insane. Carl Ruck was talking about this on one of his videos. He's a classical scholar.
Also,
studies ancient Greek.
Two snakes would probably represent the divine masculine and feminine that exists in all of us. Okay? And those two snakes, when they dance and merge their energies in balance, they unlock the highest state we can. That's why every tradition and everything has been trying to tell us this, and we're not paying attention. And that's why those symbols, why would the snake be so evil and demonized if it's on two of our most prominent symbols that go all the way back? Because it was inverted. It was inverted from its opposite meaning. And it goes all the way back to the very beginning. The very beginning of a battle over controlling our mind, controlling our thoughts. And it goes all the way back to the very beginning of that. Again, we just talked about the story of Adam and Eve, right, in the garden, where Enki, the snake, tempts Adam with the knowledge of good and evil, and then they get kicked out and they learn awareness and all this stuff, right?
Right.
Why would that be a bad thing?
Right.
Well, it's considered a bad thing because monotheistic religions ended up becoming very controlled. That it all started with the Council of Nicaea.
Yep.
You know about that. And so it was like a put together book with some stories that were older, that were rewritten, and then other things that were used as a form of manipulation, right? We know that Jesus said that the path of reaching him, the state that he's in, is just the kingdom of heaven is found within. He didn't tell you to follow a church or anything. And yet to this day, churches reorganize that message into him being a savior that we have to follow, but we don't become that. Like we can't be our own savior. They flipped it. They switched it around to what it was never supposed to be all along. It would end up being a form of control.
Yes.
But in the original form, all these esoteric teachings and mysticism, their whole goal was to take the ancient knowledge of what once was and then incorporate it into us and then unlock basically like our God side. Like we become something far greater.
Right.
And that's what every ascended master throughout history, whether or not it's Krishna, Jesus, or Buddha, or any of them, have all been saying the exact same thing.
Right.
Every time. And yet we choose to not connect them and listen. And it's profound because we could be something far greater than we are. And we're just being held back by things that are, quite frankly, just like illusions. I have a whole nother angle that may give validity to the Atlantis story that people don't talk about. And I found it in digging into a very interesting individual named Plutarch. Have you heard of Plutarch?
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot about Plutarch.
Okay, so Plutarch, he came hundreds of years after. He was actually 400 years after Solon visited Egypt. Okay, Plutarch's story is a dangerous one because Plutarch brings credibility to something that's supposed to be an allegory, like nobody else does. So I would also like encourage people to look into Diodorus too.
Yep.
Very interesting.
Yep.
But you're very well versed on this. So let me see if you know this. So Plutarch he's a very unfortunate individual that what he's known for is almost unknown. And what he is known for is somewhat irrelevant. Okay? So Plutarch was actually a temple priest. I don't know if you know that, of Delphi. So he was actually a temple priest of Apollo at Delphi in Greece. He was a pretty high level individual. He was, you could call him the last of his kind because after him, everything changed. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. He was a great philosopher. He was a temple priest. He was a mystic. He knew a lot of knowledge. And he has been totally glossed over in history for some reason. And so I've been digging into that and found some really interesting stuff regarding that. So why is Plato's work considered an allegory and not real? Well, Plato doesn't give us any specifics about who these temple priests are that Solon meets with. He doesn't actually say any names. The only thing he says is the name of the temple. He says it's the Temple of Sais, S-A-I-S. So that's all we get. So what happened was scholars came back and said, well, Plato made the entire thing up. None of it's true. The only part of that story that's true is that Solon did visit Egypt, right?
Well, also all of the people around Plato were constantly saying he was a liar and he was full of shit, including Aristotle.
Well, I think it's because there was a mandate and there was an effort to basically disprove and quiet that whole narrative. Like, for instance, Socrates was murdered.
Yeah.
Right? Socrates was murdered. He actually ended up being able to decide his own death. Did you know that?
Yep.
So he picked hemlock
Yep.
to...
Instead of leaving, yeah.
Plato was devastated. Socrates was his great mentor. He was devastated. I think that was why he hid a lot of that information as an allegory, because I think they would have killed him too. I think Plato hid that information because he knew the nature of the world that he lived in. Okay, that's why I think he did it. But the reason why scholars and academics don't think the story is real is because they think that it's only based on Solon's visit to Egypt and that everything else was made up. Okay? But what Plutarch brings is credibility to that early information that nobody else has ever done. So what happened? Well, Plutarch came out with 2 books. One was called The Life of Solon, and another one called Moralia that has a chapter in it called Isis and like Ishtar or something. And it is 2 different parts of his work that have been like ignored by history. So anyone listening to this, go look up what I'm talking about. It will blow your mind. Because, and I actually have a really cool quote that I will read that I don't know if anyone in the world has ever even heard yet. I'm very excited to do that. So, he writes these 2 books. They get glossed over. They get kind of ignored, which is really strange. And I've looked it up with ChatGPT and I asked why that happened. And they think that it's because people end up focusing on Plato and basically just somehow ignored Plutarch.
It's funny. All the classical scholars I've talked to, they all hate Plato.
Do they?
They all say he's boring.
I think he's the best. He's amazing. I love Plato's work. It goes very far beyond just talking about Atlantis too. So anyway, Plutarch ends up providing these details in his works that anyone can go look up that gives credibility to that entire visit that Solon went on in a way that changes it from allegory to fact. And the reason is, when we look at the Plato story, it's just that, Solon met with like a hypothetical, like a priest in a temple.
Sure.
And you're like, okay, like you can just make that up, right? Okay, fine. Solon went to Egypt, fine. But the rest is probably made up, right? No. Plutarch knew details. And why he knew details? Well, Plutarch took a very interesting trip, if not trips, to Egypt during this time, and he did a lot more than Solon did. He went to nearly every ancient Egyptian temple, including Amun-Ra and all these different temples, and he met with all these different priests and learned about ancient Egyptian history. One of the things he did is that he went to the temple of Neith at Sais, which is where the entire story comes from that Plato talks about from Solon. It's this temple that is supposedly not real, right? It's like a mythical allegory. Well, Plutarch's like, no, it was a real temple. I went there. And not only that, he has an inscription from one of the things that was written in the walls. And I can read it.
Okay.
And I don't know if anyone's ever read that before. To have it come out. But let me say a couple other things before I read it.
Okay.
He names the 2 temple priests that Solon met with. So instead of being like this hypothetical thing now, it's 2 very specific individuals. The first one is known as Sonchis, Sonchis. His name is Sonchis of Sais, and he is a priest that is in charge of that region, that temple. Meanwhile, another priest from Heliopolis comes up from the journey to meet because they hear about Solon coming.
Is it the story that it was a priestess that he met?
No, 2 priests. So one of them is Sonchis.
Okay.
And the other one is a priest from Heliopolis.
Okay.
And his name is Xenophis. Xenophis is his name. Do you have that up?
Sonohis, yeah.
Yeah.
Sonohis and Sonus.
So he meets with these 2 priests that are supposedly the greatest elders the greatest elders of wisdom of anyone that was alive.
Okay.
Like they're the 2 individuals that knew ancient history and information that nobody else knew anymore. They were like the last 2. And that the entire temple of Neith, the purpose of it was a temple of knowledge, but not just knowledge of the current times. It was a temple that was dedicated to the knowledge of everything, like the past civilizations, what they knew, the stories of them. And that's why Solon was able to learn the story of Atlantis, and that the walls actually had the story inscribed into it of Atlantis. Now, and this is where it gets really interesting, is that Xenophus of Heliopolis he writes all about those two temple priests, and then he talks about how when he went to the temple, he wrote down the only inscription that's ever survived. Because after he left, he went there 1,940 something years ago. After he left, the Romans and others destroyed a lot of Egypt, and it was lost.
Right.
So the temple of Neith at Sais was never seen ever again. Plutarch was the last person.
Here, fix your mic.
Plutarch was the last person to ever potentially, at least a philosopher or scholar, to potentially ever visit the temple of Neith ever again. After that, it was destroyed and never seen ever again, which is
Interesting.
wild. So he says this in the temple walls. He wrote down one of the inscriptions. I don't know why he didn't write all of them down. I don't know, but he wrote one down.
And where did he write this?
In his book. It was from his chapter in Moralia called Isis and Osiris.
Isis and Osiris by Plutarch.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's in a body of work called Moralia.
Moralia. Okay.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to look it up,
Okay.
this is what it says from the temple. You ready for this? It's from Neith. So Neith is like the Egyptian equivalent of Athena in ancient Greece.
Okay.
Okay? It says, I am all that has been, is, and shall be. No mortal has lifted my veil. How wild is that? It's beautiful, isn't it?
What does it mean?
Well, we have to figure it out. But the point is that
What does it have to do with Atlantis?
it shows you that then the conversations that we then pick up with Plato, the temple priests say to Solon, you Greeks remember one deluge, but there have been many, primarily of water and fire. And he then goes on in the Critias to describe and say that this entire story is not fiction, but is based on a real story that has been recorded in the temple. What I'm trying to say is,
Okay, I see.
if we get validity to who the temple priests were, both of them, that the temple was real, and we have all of that, then at what point do we then say, at what point is that information that's being told from Solon fact or fiction? Is it all true?
Right.
Is the entire thing true? You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I see
It
what you're
then
saying.
makes it a real event, a real place, that real things were being described to him. Does it make any sense? Let's go the other way for a minute. There's two priests that we know are real. There's a temple that's real. We know they visited. That was all real. Why then would they meet up with people like that and then tell them a bunch of bullshit? Or not tell us anything like they said at all? If he made the whole thing up, then what did they actually say? More importantly, maybe that is what they said. Is what I'm trying to say. Is at what point does it become them talking about something that they didn't even say, that became like an allegorical myth,
Right.
versus something that Plato used as a real world comparison example of a civilization that became corrupted?
Yes.
As an example against another civilization, which then implies, and we have evidence archaeologically to prove it, that Greece had a proto-civilization before. He calls them the Athenians. Do you remember? In the Timaeus and Critias, Plato says Atlantis went to war against another
Yes.
democracy, another
Right.
civilization. He
An
uses
advanced civilization. Yes.
he uses the Athenians, the Proto-Greeks,
Yes.
as a model for a perfect society, right?
Right, but Atlantis existed according to these texts, how long before Athens?
He only tells us the date of its destruction, but he says that at the time.
But yeah, 'cause so its destruction was how many thousands of years before
It's-
Athens?
Well, Athens or pre-Athens? This is what I'm getting at, is that
Well, we've excavated all the way down to bedrock.
we've found there's a place called the Pix Wall. Can you look it up? Really, it's PYX. It's in ancient Greece outside of Athens. I might have not spelled that correctly. No. It's a whole wall. It's an ancient wall. PY.
You want pictures?
Pix Wall.
Yeah. I'm not spelling it right. I'm gonna get
okay, well-
blasted online about this. There it is, right here. Here it is, right here. That's the wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
This thing?
Yeah. That's the wall. That is your pre-Greek civilization. That is your
Okay.
Athenian civilization. That wall has some of the largest stones In fact, I think it's the largest megalithic stones in all of Europe. And the level of masonry is absolutely superior to anything we see in the Greek culture after. When they built after, they built with colosseums and different designs with limestone. This wall is right in outside of Athens, and it has not only massively perfectly cut blocks put together,
Right. Look at that angled one right
but
there.
each edges has three levels on each corner, like that concept of three that we had talked about. So when I read about this Athenian civilization that is fighting against the Atlanteans, I actually take it as fact. And that what we're looking at is the reason why Greece flourished as such a democracy is because they preceded a much older and more ancient culture that was there. And most of what it built was destroyed and didn't survive. Being its proximity to the Mediterranean, it was likely a massive tsunami probably destroyed almost everything that we had of that culture. And that wall, called the Pix Wall, may be one of the only things we have left to prove that civilization ever existed.
Wow. Where exactly? This wall's in
Right
Athens.
outside of Athens. And if you look at all the architecture in Italy and around that area of Greece, the surrounding region, none of it looks like that. It's all called Cyclopean building. But
So you're saying so you're even though the
those are all fit together individually.
even though the archaeologists have excavated Athens down to its bedrock, you're saying that there was a completely different civilization that was built right there on top of it before?
And very little of it survived. Very little of it survived. We're talking about tsunamis during those catastrophes that may have been miles high. Miles. Completely obliterating everything. And so why did that survive? Well, that wall was probably in a really particular location in that maybe it got kind of buried or something. I don't know, but it survived. And there's no other architecture in Greece or even surrounding Italy that looks like that. It's like completely out of place.
Yeah.
And it happens to be right in next to Athens. So we know Athens was very important.
Right.
And so that's where I get into looking at this from the standpoint where even though Plato may have turned those civilizations into an allegorical example of a corruption versus non-corruption, it may be based on a literal real thing.
No, I agree with that. I agree that the allegories translate into real life, just like the allegory of the cave is very relevant to society today. And
Exactly.
I think the allegory of Atlantis versus Athens, even if it was some sort of a hypothetical war game, could easily have been modeled from reality and something that has happened in the past and can repeat in the future.
Aren't most of those lessons taught to us through whatever religious text or others are based
myths,
on something real that then is a perfect example as a lesson to teach?
Yeah, totally.
Right? You wouldn't just create something hypothetical. It'd be based on something real, which is why he had so many details of Atlantis, the rings, the rings, how many of there were, its location, and why in the Azors we have what is clearly, like conversations I've had, really good ones with Randall Carlson, clearly a submerged continent underneath there.
Yeah.
The Azors.
Yeah.
Which is exactly where Plato described the location of Atlantis being. And now we have just the volcanic tops of those volcanoes.
Right.
And if you look, all you have to do is go look at Google Maps with aerial imagery, and you can look at the Azores and see an entire subcontinent that basically sunk, which is exactly what Atlantis is described as not being destroyed. It's described as sinking underneath the ocean.
Right.
And so if you have plate tectonics, what is at the Azores at that location? It's one of the only places in the world where there are three plates that come together in one spot. You have the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the Atlantic Ridge, others. They all come together at Eurasia.
Yeah, if you look at pull up the oceanic tomography of the Azores and the surrounding ocean basin there, it's crazy.
And so you have a place where three plates come together right in one spot, and you have evidence of submerged continent, and it's west of the Pillars of Hercules. It has all the parameters. And so I think Atlantis was likely a global civilization, but that location, the Azores, was where the city that was described by Plato was. It's the city, the central city. Like, for instance, if the United States was a country that covered a much larger area somehow, and DC was its capital.
Right.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
Like that kind of concept.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow.
All you need to do is pull up even just a Google. You can just use a Google Maps and show. Just go to the Azores. You can see it.
Yeah, you can see that. They're yeah.
Yeah, here you go. Pull up satellite for me. Yeah, don't zoom all the way in yet.
Layers, there you go.
Stay a little out for
Boom.
me. Yeah, okay.
Look at
Go
that.
in a little bit. Now look right in the center. You see that entire shallow landmass. The
Yep.
darker blue represents deeper waters.
Yep.
And so lighter is shallower. Now look, it's an entire convergence of where they're likely that's
Tectonic plates.
A continent that what's called sank. And you can get that if you have a type of fault that basically sinks and subducts. So it's
Right.
called a subducted fault that can create a situation like something like that can happen.
Yeah, man. There's a whole, and as well, there's theories out there that the Eye of the Sahara could be the Atlantis, but
There's some problems with that theory though.
Yeah, there's
it's at like
problems.
1,400 feet elevation.
yeah, and
so-
that whole part of Africa is like super unexplored. Like no one's ever walked around that area, that
well,
reshot
it's
structure.
really it's like,
It's inhospitable. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a dangerous
crazy.
place.
It's
Yeah.
a crazy dangerous place. But
Yeah.
it's just fascinating that no one's actually been there and like documented it on the ground. People have flown over it, but
So why is there nothing left? Well, it looks like those tectonic events and what happened to it were so severe that nothing could survive. Nothing. So when people are saying, what's the evidence of Atlantis? I point to things like that wall I just showed you, to things like Ionis, to things like in Peru and Bolivia and Egypt. I think that is all Atlantis. It was just a globally connected civilization that was all sharing knowledge and was all maritime.
right.
They were
Right.
all just traveling around. Like it was the whole world was connected. But I think they were living in conjunction with indigenous groups at the same time. And I'm not someone who's going to jump on really talking a lot about necessarily like that, the extraterrestrial influence type of concept. But I will tell you, if there's anything that suggests outside intervention, it's the moon. It's the weirdest thing in the world. Like we know of no other satellite to a planet ratio like the moon. The what its composition is, the way that it balances life here, and the size ratio for the Earth and the Sun, it's an impossibility.
Yeah, it's 1/400th the size,
It's
and it's
too
1/400th the distance. It's perfect
And-
to create an eclipse.
And we're told that the moon is just an accreted object that randomly formed that perfect shape that happens to be 1/400th, right? To be that perfect representation of the size to create eclipse. It's impossible that could be random. It's impossible. There's no way that all those impossibilities could come together in one thing unless something wanted to create a perfect system here.
Right.
That's what it seems like. Our solar system is some kind of an experiment in creating a perfect system with ratios and to foster something here. And I think the more that I've studied, especially looking at tablets, is that may have been all done for, a lot of it at least may have been done for us because of how important our story is and how we actually have a far more profound connection to higher things than we know.
There's a guy who I think his name was fact check me here, Steve. The guy named Carl Wolf, who found images. He was working in the space program, and he was developing photographs. And he went into this secure location where they were actually like developing photographs of the dark side of the moon or whatever. And this guy saw it, and he described vividly that there was megalithic structures that were on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that.
And like, I think he was killed. He died mysteriously. He claimed he saw NASA photos of alien structures, quote unquote alien structures. He died in a bike accident. So go down to the top paragraph to see exactly what it says. Yeah. Okay. Former U.S. Air Force he was a photo technician who claimed he saw the secret NASA photos of the structures on the surface of the moon. So I don't think he actually said whether he believed they were alien or not. What he said was they were megalithic looking structures on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah. And so there's a couple really weird things, and I guess Randall's really good in moon stuff, but I'll mention a couple things. One, when they did studies of there was a whole Russian team, and I don't remember if it was the 70s or 80s, but a Russian team did a study on craters on the moon. Have you heard this?
How they're all the same depth?
Yeah. And then none of them, no matter how large the radius of the crater is, none of them exceed a certain depth.
Right.
Which is so weird because
Very weird.
the depth should be directly determined based on the size of the impact, right? So if something's larger that creates a larger impact crater should go deeper into it.
Right.
And yet none of them do. They never go past a certain depth anywhere on the planet. They never do. And the weirdest thing is when, after the Apollo missions, when they sent a probe to crash into the moon, I'm sure you know about this, it rang like a bell for
over an hour.
For hours. It just rang, which tells us that it's
here's an interesting
composed
take.
of metallics and is hollow. Like, is that...
Steve, ask ChatGPT, what is the size of the moon compared to the Earth? And then ask ChatGPT, what is the mass of the moon compared to the Earth? And the variation is crazy.
Oh, it's like light. It's really, really light.
Oh,
but it's also the strongest thing ever at the same time.
Right.
So it's really weird.
Yeah. So, okay. Oh, we didn't ask for all this. Come on, ChatGPT.
But basically, it doesn't have any of the density of Earth. That's the thing that's so weird about it.
Okay, the moon is about a quarter the diameter of Earth. What is the mass? What is the
mass compared to Earth?
The mass difference of the Earth compared to the moon?
Oh, wow, that was cool.
The Earth is about 81 times the mass. So the moon's mass is roughly 1.23%.
And
the
yet
Earth's mass.
Yet it's a quarter the size.
A quarter the size.
Yes.
That means it's hollow.
Yeah, it's likely hollow. And the theories, and I mean, again, if you're going to try to figure something out, you got to go back to the old Sherlock Holmes thing, right? And it's important. It still rings true to this day. If you're trying to figure something out, you use that old method, right? Whenever you're trying to explore something, you explore all possibilities, and whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. That holds true for anything. So we eliminate everything, right? Let's eliminate all the things that aren't there. It has a certain depth. The craters can't go past a certain depth. It rings. It's lighter. So what does that mean? What's all that's left? Well, it's not natural. It has some kind of a shield, like some kind of a metallic or something underneath the ground.
Yeah.
Something to prevent anything from going deeper. And if it's a metallic-like object, it somehow is hollow too. Like that's the only thing that makes sense if we analyze and look at it.
Right.
And the fact that life wouldn't be possible on Earth without it
Right.
is really interesting. Like, has to be that exact ratio. What was it? That if it was even 5% in a different location, like if it was 5% further away or 5% closer, like none of this would work.
Well, the distance between the Earth and the moon is changing. So I think, what did Kevin Knuth explain to us? I think he explained to us that the distance, the moon every year gets a couple feet farther away from the Earth. Is that right? And has it been constantly doing that, or does it? I think maybe it resets every couple thousand years or something like this.
Well, it's tidal locked, so it's stuck to our gravity, so it can't go anywhere. But it is so weird. It's so interesting to consider whether or not something was created a long time ago to let a certain kind of story unfold.
I mean, it's a miracle. The moon is a miracle.
It's an impossibility.
Right. It's like the moon being, the idea that the moon just randomly ended up being that distance from the Earth to be that distance to the sun, and being able to perfectly stabilize and terraform this Earth to make it livable is as believable as Jesus Christ. I mean, it's enough to make anyone become a Christian.
If anything, I would challenge anyone who's smart and academic to try to go look at that evidence to try to disprove that.
Right.
Like about what the moon is, because it doesn't make sense.
So this says that the moon moves away from the Earth at a rate of about 3.78 centimeters or 1.5 inches per year. Can you zoom out a little bit, Steve? So it says the moon's gravity creates tidal bulges in the Earth's oceans because the Earth rotates faster than the moon orbits. These bulges are pulled slightly ahead of the moon. The moon's gravity then pulls back on these bulges, and in turn, the bulges pull forward on the moon, pushing it into a slightly wider orbit. Interesting. But does it say that? So it goes back and forth. Is that what it's saying?
Yeah, it can't actually, because it would just leave if that was the case. It would it probably just wobbles back and forth. Based on that. Right. Yeah, but it's really interesting. I mean, it's
also crazy that it's fucking it's 234,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Like, that's just absurd how far away it is. You know, but it doesn't seem that far away.
Because it still plays such an integral part in our planet with life.
Right.
Yeah. It's just weird.
Yeah.
I mean, someday, hopefully we'll know more answers on that. For me, I like to typically think, look, there's a lot to figure out still in space. We have a lot to still figure out here. Right? Especially with our story and who we are. So a lot of people are racing to try to escape. I'm more like, I think that what we need is that we most need to grow is here, not out there. Like, for instance, we are very primitive in our understanding of consciousness and higher levels of energy and spirituality in like a deep way like they were. We're like children when it comes to that. I think that we shouldn't be blinded by the fun technologies that are put in front of us and ignore what may be a more important area to understand and go into. Like, rather than moving forward at the speed we are and thinking that there aren't consequences, I think we need to remember that we can learn a lot more about who we are and about where we should be going in the future in the past than necessarily in the future. Like, they could teach us a lot more than we understand, a lot more. And I think that's actually the biggest piece here, is that if we study this civilization, this global civilization that left all these clues for us, all this knowledge, I think it is the ultimate way we find what we've been looking for all along, not out there, it's here.
Yeah, I agree with you.